I'm Diana Felzone, and this is 4for4 SciTech. A futuristic cargo shipping vessel looks to revolutionize shipping, and it looks like a pirate ship. James, why is this such an advancement?
This is awesome. These weird and wonderful ships of the future, so-called eco-ships. There's a Norwegian designer who's built this ship, which he claims is going to save loads and loads of fuel, basically by turning the ship's hull into a sail. Now, it's kind of early days for this, but he told me this week that we could see the ship setting sail in 2019. But, you know, there's a lot of big question marks before it gets to that point, though.
Okay.
And I love the sleek design. I mean, normally cargo ships are an eyesore, but what's great about these is they're better for the environment, they cut down on fuel costs, but it will depend on what the licensing costs of these ships are, because now that fuel costs are going down, it might not be economical.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see stuff like this, and to be totally honest, I wish we saw more of it. You know, this is we've been talking about alternative fuel and creating efficiency in vehicles for years, and yet there's been very, very little movement across the board. So when it's something as big as a cargo vessel, yeah, that's awesome. And when you go to cities like Hong Kong and you notice that these things are basically moving global markets, that's really exciting. I think the incentive is there.
Well, it's been under the radar because, like you said, it's not a very glamorous topic, but it's needed if we really do care about our carbon footprint. A Chinese company builds the first 3D printed building. Are 3D printers the future of construction, Michael? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this comes to no surprise to anyone that's been around a 3D printer. Basically, they are using the same type of software that a lot of architects are using to build buildings. So there's a really natural fit, I think, and it just increases efficiency. Yeah, it makes total sense.
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to 3D printing. You have 3D printed food, 3D printed clothing, and now it sounds like this can really improve the efficiency of building, which could cut down on costs.
I don't know, call me overcautious, but you know, it was only a few months ago we were sat here talking about 3D printed cremation urns, and now we're talking about buildings, and this company is looking at building potentially skyscrapers and bridges. I'm not ready to drive a car over the 3D printed bridge at this stage.
Well, at least it's usable, and it is kind of at the beginning stages, like you said, so we're being pioneers of the 3D printers, but we can even start taking 3D printers home. There's a makeup 3D printer that's coming out, and I'm kind of excited about that, but I think buildings definitely more usable. In weird and very morbid news, a 32-year-old man dies after gaming for 3 consecutive days, and another man died the same way earlier this year. Should gamers be concerned?
So this is obviously a tragic situation. Apparently, video game addiction is a real thing. I think if you find yourself unable to get out of your chair for a few days, you should probably get help. My guess is this guy probably had an underlying health condition that was aggravated by the stress of being in his chair for too long.
Right, a virtual reality.
I agree. I mean, there's an ongoing debate about what video game addiction is and kind of, you know, what causes it. Like, does it have like links towards the same sort of, you know, biological elements as say drug addiction? But I think that this does point to it as like that there's a big issue out there, and you know, just because this happened in an internet cafe in Taiwan doesn't mean to say that there aren't Americans who are kind of wrestling with a lot of these issues too.
Yeah,
that's totally true. I mean, yeah, it's a form of escapism, right? And anytime you're dealing with something like that, you have to be sort of careful. So I'd be a liar if I said that I've never spent hours upon hours playing a video game. In fact, I've done it probably too many times. And so yeah, it's a very real thing. It's easy to get sort of lured into this virtual reality.
Well, some tips that they've given are stand up once in a while when you're gaming, make sure to walk around, stretch a bit, go see the sunlight, and eat and sleep. How did this person actually stay in a coffee shop for 3 consecutive days is beyond me, because you know at any of the big coffee houses here, you get kicked out. Wearable devices are one of the hottest new trends in tech, but the FDA won't regulate most health-related wearables. What exactly does this mean for the buyer? Should they beware, Michael?
No. So I think this speaks to sort of the sort of how a lot of wearables are basically inconsequential, right? They're basically tracking your movement over time. So so the distinction in the law basically says that you can't say this will prevent obesity, but you can say this will promote general wellness. That's, you know, really not that important, but ultimately it comes down to when you run 2 miles, you usually hit your health goal. And when you sit at your desk all day, you don't do that. So, so I think it just goes to show that like these wearables may affect your daily habits. For the most part, they're just tracking motion and get up and run, move around, like you just said. So.
I think for consumers, have got to like be aware as well. I mean, there's a world of difference between an insulin pump for diabetics and, like, you know, a fitness wearable device. You know, your Apple Watch isn't going to be a substitute for your doctor. So, you know, consumers are going to have to be realistic about what these things are going to do for them and kind of, you know, be very sensible about it.
Yeah, exactly. The FDA is more focused on safety. It's not their job to guarantee that your jawbone step count is accurate. They're more focused on preventing health risks. I mean, the Fitbit did cause rashes for some people, but for the most part, these wristbands are pretty safe.
All right, guys, so you're safe wearing your wearables. Now you know what we think. Tell us what you think on Twitter with the hashtag 444 SciTech.